2000 hours, and from the Gambia radio and television services, welcome to Newsfile in our top stories. A call to revive the Gambia's top hospital. The Chief Medical Director of the Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital calls on government to commit more resources to the running of the hospital. And what about misleading advertisement in the Gambia? Consumer concerns over deceptive ads hits a national high as technology brings smarter tools to PR companies. Our reporters explore the delicate lane to find out why ads look much better than the actual products they advertise. And going green in Kafuta, residents of the Combo East community join forces to restore the area's thinning forest cover and fast disappearing vegetation. Elsewhere, farmers in South Africa are echoing fears expressed in President Trump's tweet. While no land has yet been seized, there is worry the seizures could turn violent or cause a plummet in land value. These plus many more stories are in sports. The Gambia Scorpions begin their first training session on the new Belgian coach Tom Sanford ahead of a crucial qualifier. These plus many more stories coming ahead. With me, Fatima Tassise, and
I'm Mustafa Mbaye.
Welcome back to Newsfile, and we begin this bulletin with an exclusive sit-down with the Chief Medical Director of the Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital, who has called on the government to commit more resources to the hospital, which is also the biggest referral center in the Gambia. Well, Dr. Ahmad Lamin Samate made the comments in an interview with the GRTS checkpoint, and he said in order for the main referral hospital to continue to provide quality services to the public, it must be well-resourced in both personnel and equipment. Now, for more on that, we are now joined live in the studio by Dr. Ahmad Samate, who is the Chief Medical Director at Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital. Welcome to Newsfile.
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me. As you rightly mentioned, the Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital is a main referral center for the entire nation. It's a hospital that is everyone's business in this country, because we do not know who the next patient is going to be. That being said, but of course we should never forget where we come from too soon. We just came out of a dictatorship, and that actually neglected that hospital to the core. The infrastructure are dilapidated. They were not renovated for so many years. The equipment were old and obsolete. The supplies were not coming as they were supposed to come, whilst the dictator sent his wife to see the dentist in France and paid $300,000 on airfare and go again after 2 weeks for a checkup. So these are the facts that people should not forget. Now, we are trying to get us out of that kind of situation. That is what we met, and that's what this government met. That is why the challenges are there. However, we keep on saying, yes, the dictator did that, but we cannot continue to cry over spilled milk. We have to pick up from where we met it and then move on. And that moving on has been quite a challenge, because actually some people are resistant to that move, because that move necessitates certain drastic actions.
Okay, so what essentially are you asking government to do?
Yeah, what we're asking the government to do is actually to provide adequate resources. Healthcare is not cheap anywhere. And I give this example. If a patient needs adrenaline to survive in the UK, we cannot say because it's Gambia we should give water. He needs the same adrenaline. So that means if UK spends a particular amount of money to buy supplies and drugs, we just need that if we want that kind of service. The salaries may differ, but if we want good quality services, we must be able to provide for our people the drugs and the equipment that are needed.
So, Doctor, many times we've seen complaints emanating from the Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital, especially from the staff, complaining about, like you just mentioned, its dilapidated structure, some of the equipment that you lack there. Are you saying the funding being given to you is not sustainable?
Actually, if you look at in budgetary terms, before the former government left, what was allocated to the hospital was even reduced. And there was a particular year, apart from the reduction, there was a particular year in 2015, from what we are supposed to receive, over 10.5 million didn't come to the hospital for that particular year. In 2016, 9 million didn't come to the hospital. Where it went, we have no idea. And we get our subventions from the Ministry of Finance to the Ministry of Health, of course. So we are not getting what we are supposed to give. And if you look at the total subvention we get from government, it has not improved. It hasn't. So, I mean, if you want to improve on the situation, if the former government was giving us $100, if we get the same $100 now, things will not get better. They'll get worse because the machines will break down. Now, at this juncture, I must say we have started seeing a lot of commitment from the current government, in the sense that they have given some money for the procurement of equipment, and those equipment will get here very soon. And they have
those type of equipment? What are these?
These are equipment needed for monitoring, anesthetic machines, monitors that are used to monitor critically ill patients, ventilators that are used to support people in respiratory problems, and so on and so forth. Quite a number. X-ray machines, the portable ones, and so on and so forth. And some basic supplies, X-ray films and the like, because frequently we have shortages of that because we don't have local suppliers of these items. Yeah.
Okay, Doctor, while government, you actually say that they are acting, and obviously they would answer to the call because they are obliged to. Are there any contingency measures that the hospital can take while awaiting?
So what hospital is doing? When I took over as the Chief Medical Director, first of all, we thought there are things that do not need much money. Cleaning the environment. So if you walk into the hospital now, you know that the place is greener. At least we can plant here, we can, at least to make the environment a little bit more conducive for the patients and so on. Before we started, if you remember, there were broken down vehicles all over, you don't see them anymore. So the environment is a lot neater. We try to do that. Now, we try to close the loopholes. And subvention is very little compared to other institutions in this country. We get just about 117 million every year, and 91% of that goes to pay salaries. So what is left for the patient food? What is left for the repairs? Very, very little. So how do we cope? We cope by trying to maximize the little generated income within the hospital to procure drugs and consumables. That actually was not our mandate because arms whilst our people suffer, and so we don't want things to get better. They don't, because if things get better, then that means the administration is succeeded, government is succeeded. Political people have their agents there, we came to know, and they're pushing them. So some of this false information that comes out is from people who do not wish the people of Gambia well.
So false information do that include the lack of these blood bags?
With regards to lack of the blood bags at that time when there were blood bags in the system.
So there were blood bags
actually. There was shortage. Yeah, let me say this important point. But why some of them are very upset is that because we are closing the loopholes. Okay. Some people were collecting monies from patients. They collect money and do not give receipts. You go to X-ray, they do X-rays and collect monies and no receipts for the patient. Or they give them a receipt of yesterday, recycled receipts they are being given. Or you go to CT scan. The lab is a similar thing. People go there, they collect monies from them, and they do not bank the monies into the hospital. And one serious thing, even in our accounts department, you have auditors came and realized that for a period of about 2.5 years, $3 million was not accounted for. So when we stand up and say no to this, and no to this because these are the monies of the people of the Gambia. We complain about lack of resources, which is true, but we should maximize the ones that are paid into the system. Now they are not happy. They fight. They pour a whole lot of spiritual water on my car and a whole lot of things. They go to the social media and a lot of fabrications. But I mean, if those on the social media or anywhere, if they want the information, let them come to the right sources.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. That was Ahmadou Lamin Samate, Chief Medical Director, Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital. Thank you very much for coming to.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you.
Right, Doctor. Thank you.
Across the world, of course, democracy has become a popular political system for choosing and replacing governments via elections with lofty values such as the protection of human rights and the rule of law, enabling laws and procedures for citizens to enjoy justice and equality. It's precisely what Gambians wanted and longed for through 2 decades of the former regime. For many, the change of government through elections in 2016, however, brought a groundbreaking tide whose impact also included a misrepresentation on democracy, leading to some excesses. In many new democracies, citizens usually struggle to strike a balance between liberty and responsibility. Our reporter, Babu Cham, examines the legal perspective of democracy in relation to the rule of law.
It was a celebration from democracy characterized by impunity to democracy governed by the rule of law. To an ordinary citizen, what is this democracy people are yearning for and being celebrated?
A system of government where the people that are governed have a popular control over the way decisions are being made collectively.
We have to be held accountable of what we are doing. That is all about democracy. Let us do things that are right, and if we do things that are not right, if the law says this, we should not comply. Democracy means that ekana motora mokane tora.
As the major duty bearer in a democratic system of governance, the state ensures that it upholds, protects, and respects human dignity, racial equality, cultural diversity, the rule of law, freedom of speech, and religion, amongst others. In guaranteeing these rights by the state, the citizenry has the responsibility or duty that is morally and legally bound to replicate, to nurture the democratic values in our society.
Citizens must ensure for them to enjoy their rights, they do not also perpetrate violations of others' rights. Yes, it's a matter of peaceful coexistence.
As we ushered into the new dispensation, the change of government has brought in so many misconceptions about democracy. The recent findings at the police shows that many are found wanting by the law.
People think that having a democracy is an unlimited freedom, that they can do anything, meaning as if the law is suspended. The same law that was here is the same laws that are here.
Democracy is sine qua non to the rule of law. It cannot qualify when the law is taken for granted. Thus, the implementation of the rule of law is not in any way against democracy.
Rule of law requires that law be the governing thing, that we all be subject to law, all right? Just as the word itself, we are ruled by law. Every man, irrespective of your status in society, we are all subjected to the same kind of laws, and the said laws are applied uniformly on all of us in the same way, in the same pattern.
A police officer being attacked on the highway when in the due execution of his lawful duties, were some of the cases that we are actually reported in here, and the people concerned are actually been taken through the due process of the law, and then the law have taken its course.
According to law, there is no freedom that is absolute. One is not at liberty to infringe on someone's freedom in the name of democracy. Inasmuch as we have the freedom to express ourselves, to what extent can we exercise this freedom without necessarily infringing on other people's rights?
Expressing an opinion is not the same as making unsubstantiated allegations about people. This is completely different. An opinion, we can deal with issues of national importance, and we can express our opinions as the way we perceive those things and which side of the debate we are. But I wouldn't agree with people who think they are at liberty to fabricate stories to tarnish the image of innocent people.
To enhance our understanding on democracy, there is a need to broaden the civic education at the grassroots level to strengthen the already peaceful ties in our communities.
Attitude, we must admit, is a big problem in the Gambia, and we need to look inwards and work on our attitude. even if we have to change all the laws, we reform all the institutions. If the attitudes of human beings are not responsive, then we may not be making much progress. In fact, we may undo all the reforms that we may undertake during this transition.
To strengthen and consolidate the democratic gains, the onus therefore lies on all of us, the government and the people, to live by the democratic principles and values to live a peaceful life that guarantees security for all.
The police will never lose from their stance of ensuring a safer and peaceful Gambian community. The police are ready to ensure that that peaceful climate is created so that investors can come into this country.
We all owe it to ourselves to make sure we nurture that democratic dispensation. We don't abuse it. And by not abusing it, we also have to protect it to ensure others don't take it away from us.
For GRTS News, I am Babu Cham reporting.
Interestingly, Mr. Father, can democracy really thrive without responsibility? A lot of people think democracy is just like, come on, slap Mustafa and go away. It's democracy. We're all free.
Well, no, actually democracy can thrive where responsibilities are not, taken. People need to be held to account to what they do and say. Well, here many believe that it's only the government that should be held to account, but that's not the case. In fact, anyone who is under the jurisdiction of this country should be held to account to what he or she says.
Absolutely, just like in that piece wrote by Babu Cham there, somebody was saying everybody has to be responsible in what you do, in what you say, because each and every one of us will be accountable, only the government. Right, let's continue with News File, and we'll head to Kafuta because people there are rallying to enrich and preserve the area's forest cover and fast disappearing vegetation. Once credited for having one of the thickest forests in Congo East, Kafuta is facing an increasingly loss of plant life, which foresters say threatens local livelihoods and the area's biodiversity. Exeter Keita joined the community in their latest tree planting exercise and tells us more.
Green, beautiful with a great biodiversity. That's what the Gambia is known for. But the country is fast losing its forest cover and natural vegetation to the exploits of illegal logging and deforestation. Today, many parts of the country are struggling with rapidly disappearing vegetation, which for others spells a dilemma considering the effects of deforestation on climate change and livelihoods. In one particular village in Congo, villagers are coming together to stop the tide of fast disappearing vegetation and plant life. This is how it is done each year in Kafuta. Youth folk uniting to replenish the lost forest cover shows the village's attempt to preserve their most important asset, the forest cover.
Green environment is always a healthy environment, and I think we are all looking for health. So it is something very important.
Different plant species have been planted in the vast forest located in the West Coast settlement, with each plant cultivated to serve a distinct purpose.
West Coast is growing in numbers, and because of that large number, the demand on our forest cover is increasing daily. So we should not be relaxed about trying to restore the destruction that is happening.
This group of keen volunteers clearly understand the importance of trees, especially in preserving local livelihoods. They all have the common goal of recovering the lost forest cover and bringing back Kafuta's once rich vegetation. The settlement was once credited for having the thickest forest cover in the area.
Kafuta Forest was one of the best forests in the Gambia. This is why you have a school that teach foresters here in the Gambia. And there was a long time in 80s, there was a Kafuta German Forestry Project. This is why we are in Bambakunu. You have Katlenge, and you also have a community forest, which is only managed by Kafuta. But here is managed by the three earlier mentioned villages.
Described by many as an initiative worthy of emulation, young people in the village have now become the key custodians of the area's environment.
During the dry season also, we clear the fire belts to make sure that we preserve the forest. And we make sensitization also within the community Kafuta and its neighboring villages such as Sanginga, Bulok and Kafuta Tumbung, so that together we can be able to preserve the forest.
Community participation has been described by many as a crucial stride in achieving national goals, and amid current efforts to restore the Gambia's natural cover. This move demonstrates a practical model that can be useful towards afforestation across the country. For GRTS News, I am Asatu Keita.
Absolutely. Mr. Farah, every year we hear about tree planting exercise. For us to, plant more trees.
Observe is that most of the time they don't provide them with protectors. And, I would suggest from now on, if any organization or association or community is organizing such tree planting exercise, they also budget along a protector. That is the ring that would be protecting the planted tree.
So I was also thinking perhaps maybe the right species of saplings are not always planted, or if so, they're exploited in one way or the other.
Most of the time it's been done with the support of the Department of Forestry. So which means such fear always not factors that affect it. So most of the time, I think one of the factors that they must consider is providing a ring, a protector for each plant that is placed.
Right. So, Mr. Farah, what do we have there?
Well, from the forest to the fishing, of course, where the industry is potentially one of the most profitable sectors of the economy. But are Gambians taking advantage of these opportunities in the industry, as investors churn millions of dollars annually from the money-spinning sector, continually drawing marriage stakeholders from across West Africa? Fatma Cham visited some major fish landing sites to find out how Gambians are in the lucrative venture.
It is 5 p.m. in the Combo South district of Tangi, 30 kilometers from the capital Banjul, and Latir Sar, a fisherman, has just concluded his daily routine. Sar, like many other fisher folks here, would slip into the darkness to start another day's work because the early bird catches the worm.
Depending on what time we start fishing, if it is in the morning, you go very early and fish. It all depends on luck, though. And our profit depends on Allah. You know that's the nature of fishing. Our catches are sold here for onward distribution to the market.
The Tanja Fish Landing Site is one of the largest and busiest landing sites in the Gambia. Here, one wouldn't fail to see middlemen and women searching for fish to make a living, as well as fishing boats of landing fish. And usually, some boats land in the morning, whilst others do in the evening. Now, once boats land, people from different towns would come around to find fish. Now, crowds involve those making a living as carriers of buckets or wheelbarrows of fish to the trucks. Like many other women, Aissatou Koli comes to Tanje to buy fish, which she would later smoke and sell at markets in the Combos. I have been in this business for 6 years, but it has been going very well. Yes, we have been having some challenges regarding the buying and selling, because the prices sometimes skyrocket. Also, the private individuals contribute to this skyrocketing of prices, because they tend to pay more than the traders, and thus the best part of the catch goes to them. Fish from Tangi is transported to the hinterland, where some communities have less access to fish. Well, statistics show that over 90% of industrial fish production is exported to countries such as Belgium, the Netherlands, Spain, UK, Italy, and France. Now, back in Tangi, bargain hunters regularly visit the site, as the seafood sold here is believed to be generally cheaper than those in the inland markets of the Combos. This may not be so, as Janko Gazama, a fish trader, tells me.
The fish sold here are relatively cheaper than those at the market in Combo, because we also incur our costs, such as cooling and transportation. Even here, it depends on how lucky the pickerfolks are at sea.
The artisanal fishery subsector is characterized as low-cost and labor-intensive, and fishing operations involve the use of traditional fishing crafts and less sophisticated fishing gears, methods and techniques, and processing technologies than in the industrial fishery subsector. Although this sector is dominated by non-Gambians, it contributes significantly to the economy. I asked Latir Sar why Gambians are not heavily involved in fishing.
Yes, we have Gambians here, but majority of them are foreigners. But like I said, we need more fishing vessels here for sustainability and employment creation for Gambian youth.
Among the facilities here are an ice plant, a chill room, refrigerated trucks, smoking houses, and fishmonger sales area. Around 80% of the landings consist of bonga, and it is the cheapest in the trade. A call has been put through to authorities by the fishermen here to help improve the infrastructure at the site and get the necessary fishing vessels to get the youths into the trade. Latia Saad tells me that many of the vessels are owned by non-Gambians and the continuity of their businesses is not guaranteed.
We want government to help us with vessels. Most of the ones here are owned by foreigners whose businesses are not guaranteed. We want government to help in this regard so the youths can be employed.
Now, the fishing communities have registered concern over the observed declining state of the fish catches. This is said to be as a result of an increase in fishing intensity and irresponsible fishing practices. However, efforts are on high gear to curb this menace posed by unregulated fishing. It is fine.
No, unfortunately, because fish is my main source of protein. I prefer fish than any other source of protein, so it's unfortunate that I can't fish.
Don't you think it's a trend?
It's too late now.
Right, consumers, Mustafa, have raised concerns over the alarming rate of misleading advertisement in the Gambia. Many believe companies and corporations do not conform to the prescribed ethical standards of advertising and as such disseminate misleading information about their goods and services. And new media has also given PR companies new and smarter tools to increasingly exaggerate commercials. GRT's News File investigates of misleading advertisement and its implication on the economy. The main aim of advertising, many believe, is to sell. Adverts help to keep consumers informed about new products or services available in the market and at their disposal. Many believe adverts help to spread awareness about products or services that are of some use to consumers and potential buyers. Pavements of major highways within the Greater Banjul area are overwhelmed with billboards carrying advertisements of goods and services of business corporations. The trend of advertisement in India is on the rise, with business companies such as food and beverage companies, banks, GSM operators, real estate agencies, all advertising their products and services on the online media, print, TV, and radio. These companies brief advertising agencies about their brand imagery and the context and ideals behind it. These informations are converted into the visual text, the layout, and these are portrayed to the consumers to market their products. So are they meeting the ethical standards of advertising? We find out in this piece.
We have Section 12, which deals with advertisement regulations, and it clearly states that advertisements have to be honest, have to be truthful, and you can't be misleading or creating confusion in the minds of consumers. If there are misleading adverts being made, the consumer has to initiate, they have to come here and complain.
Whatever food that comes into the country, there are standards that it must go through. There are checks that it must go through. So we have inspectors at the ports. When the food comes, there are certain certificates, certain documentation they will ask for from the importer. These documents could include, for example, when it's a plant product, they will ask for phytosanitary certificates. When it's an animal product, they will ask for veterinary certificates for these products. And they will visually check for these products. When there is a necessity for them to collect sample, when there is a risk, when there are suspicions to see whether we have some doubts about the product, they will collect samples and send it to the labs. They will analyze the product. If the product is found to not be of good standard or of good quality, it will be returned back.
Business operators say in a competitive market, one must advertise to make customers know about the best products in stock as well as keep a healthy, positive image of business corporations. However, some consumers we spoke to opine that most advertised goods and services do not reflect the actual as contained in adverts
Unfortunately, in a lot of the advertisement, what we see is exaggeration. Most of the claims, most of the things that they say their products have are not justified. It's difficult to gauge from how the arguments in the advertisement are gauged. For instance, if you show me a picture of somebody who is an athlete, and you tell me that if I consume your product, I'll be able to do what he's doing, that's not really logical. So the companies have to be more transparent.
Sometimes what has been advertised and what we see on the ground is a totally contrasting issue. Because if you see, let's take for instance the GSM operators, sometimes they will be talking about this or being the cheapest, others will be telling you that this is the list that you can get. But at the end of the day, what we realize is sometimes things are just costly. Telecommunication, especially the internet, is just costly in the Gambia here.
While others argue that advertisements promote competition and ensure a healthy business environment.
The GSM operators, we all know as Gambians that it's not a hidden stuff that everyone knows about, everyone sees it, that the GSM operators are doing a lot of advertisement, of course, and it's not in the shadows. Satisfied to some degree, but I have also concerns regarding their services. They are able to meet the attention of people, which is very important. But as a user of these services, I am not satisfied particularly with the internet services they are offering.
For Newsfile, I am Satman.
That effort continues with a new quest to improve students' grades. Education officials recently said the 2018 grade 9 and 12 external examination results are much better than last year's exams. If that is so, what more needs fixing at the Ministry of Education to strengthen the realization of the national goals in education? Nemedi reports.
The new vision in curriculum development is that you don't only prepare people for the nation, but you prepare people for global citizenship. You see, so we are moving gradually from looking, only at Gambia to looking at global citizenship.
I asked Dr. Brahma this question as I try to establish the reality in the Gambia education system, comparing the past and present, particularly in the attainment of quality.
I know there has been a lot of structural transformation over the years. You know that previously we used to have primary and secondary school system, and now the country has embraced basic education system. And previously you had only a few people accessing basic education, even the upper element of basic education, and secondary school education you have very few people accessing it. But now we have actually more people accessing secondary education and even university education. If you are able to compare certain elements of the previous education system and now empirically, then you will be able to work. But just to say that, well, it's better now than before, or it's better now, before than now. As researchers, we don't talk like that. You definitely have to have empirical evidence. But what I can say now is that obviously it's more inclusive now, than before.
At the Job Comprehensive Senior Secondary School in Kanifing, veteran educationist Alaji Badarawai Jalo reflected on the days of the common entrance examination. Those days produces quality education, he said.
The system was created in a way that you have to pass the common entrance to get into the high schools. And at that time, yesterday you talk about, places in the high schools are very limited. So the common entrance was highly competitive. And then 30, the class size. 30 is a reasonable class, a good class for effective teaching and learning.
Jala, who started teaching in 1968, rose to the position of a director in the 90s, was also a project manager at the office of the president. He came out of retirement in 2013 to head the job. For him, the endeavor for desired goals in education requires the system, parents, schools, and students.
The reason why yesterday's education became very successful, the parents were very supportive.
Another important pillar for better teaching and learning outcomes is the Gambia College, responsible for the training of teachers. The registrar of the college, Demba Yabo, wouldn't agree that there is quality drop in teachers the college is producing as the oldest and main supplier of trained teachers.
If you look at the caliber of teachers that we are producing, I believe the college is doing a lot. Because if you look at the school system, the cream of the students that leave the school system, they all go to the university. Then we don't have university in the country. The cream of the students come to the college to do the teaching program. But now it's the opposite. The cream of the students will go to the university. So the ones we got here, those are the ones we train. And definitely, I believe our products are doing well.
Agada Henry is also an educationist with over 2 decades of experience.
We found out that even some of the teachers that are graduating from the Gambia colleges, most of them are not in the teaching field because they don't like the job. So most of them are not doing it from the heart. Teaching is a gift.
Noah Samate is a science teacher for many years. Samate is not so, he will continue.
One of the reasons is because of the low incentive that is attached to the teaching field. Looking at teaching field is not as lucrative as other sectors.
Not even one among these 5 students I interviewed want to take teaching as a career. Binta S. Conte of the University of the Gambia is one of them.
Every person you see today in a place, even I myself talking to you, pass from those teachers to where I am today. But tomorrow we look down on them, like forgetting that they were part of the people that built our future and stuff like that.
And if the words of these students are anything to go by, better wages with potentials to reverse the social prestige of teachers are essential ingredients for the country's education system with a glimmer of hope in the long term. Louis Mendy, GRTS.
And that takes us to a break. News and sports is up next. Stay tuned.
Data bundles. Official has introduced new data bundles at unbeatable tariff. 20 megabytes for $8. Yes, $8 and not $9 like other networks. The others give you 80 megabytes for $31. With Official, you get 80 megabytes for only $29.
Others give you 300 megabytes for $112. With Africell, you get it for $109 a rec.
That's not all. Dial *120# to discover more unbeatable data bundles from Africell. With Africell, you get the best data bundles for the lowest prices and fastest speed.
Where Africell goes, no one has the speed to follow.
And we now move on to some sports news. In sports, of course, the Saint finally assembles his team for training. The new head coach of the Senior Scorpions, Tom Saintfiet, finally got his reign on the way as locally based members of his squad gathered at the Independence Stadium for their first training session under the country's new gaffer. Modi Jan was present at this session and filed in this report.
International football will resume for the Gambia Senior Scorpions on the 8th of September in the ongoing AFCON 2019 qualifiers. The Scorpions will host the Desert Warriors of Algeria. The Belgian head coach Tom Saintfiet was eager to get started with his coaching duties after the end of the political brouhaha which engulfed our football for the past few months. 15 local league stars have been selected to complement the foreign-based contingent who are due in the Gambia by next week. The gaffer took time from his session to talk to GRTS Sports about the importance of the local-based players and the important role they have to play to help bring success.
For the first training session, I'm quite satisfied. First of all, I have to say congratulations to the people who prepared the stadium, because the grass pitch is a very good level. I'm very happy to that, and I'm also happy with the level of our group of players. We are preparing a group. We are not preparing a team, but a group who could be possible selected for final squad against Algeria.
A very tactically conscious coach with attention to the tiniest of details. Coach Tom drilled the players to follow every instruction to the letter. When quizzed about the chances of the local players making the final squad for the match, he had this to say.
It depends. In theory, the majority of our team will be foreign-based. On the other side, I don't want to call up 20-25 players all from abroad. First of all, I think it's financial.
Also has been a campaign on social media by some sports journalists who are clearly not impartial, that one of their stars was left out of the invitees for the upcoming match. The coach made his stance and reasons clear about the situation.
I hear some rumors about players possibly not selected or selected. In this group of 18 cannot be 7 strikers. We have to cover all positions. Every position must be double covered. That means 11 on the pitch plus 7 who can be alternative for the 11 positions on the pitch. Even if you have maybe 5-6 very good strikers, you can't call them all up. And the last thing is naturally it's useless to call up players who travel from far away if they have no chance to be in the first 11, to sit on the bench or even not on the bench. It costs a lot of money, and we have to be smart in that.
The first batch of foreign-based players are expected by early next week, and that is when the squad will begin to take shape. It will be a huge test for the Scorpions, and more importantly for the Belgian gaffer, as opponents Algeria are one of Africa's most formidable footballing nations. Their squad possess a host of global name stars like Riyad Mahrez of Manchester City, Islam Slimani of Sporting Lisbon,
where South Africa's national rugby coach, Nasser Erasmus, has made just one change for the second clash of the Rugby Championship away to Argentina on Saturday. Franco Mostard comes in for Peter Steph Dutoit, who drops to the bench, while Bulls Lok Riginslian makes his way onto the reserve bench. Now, for the most winning clash in South America, CGTN CS Duplessis is more from Johannesburg.
The change that sees Mostert come into the second row is purely because the influential Lions lock has played a lot of rugby. And last weekend in Durban, he was rested in order to be fresh for the 3-week road trip, which sees the men in green and gold face the Pumas in Argentina this weekend before tackling Australia in Brisbane and then taking on their fierce rivals and reigning champions New Zealand in Wellington. The Springboks know that they'll need to win on the road if they're to end their nearly decade-long wait for the Rugby Championship title. And as Martin Gabeni, sports editor at the Pretoria News, explains, it begins with a vastly improved performance this weekend.
I think there's one thing that the Springboks would have learned from the opening test of the Rugby Championship in Durban is that they're not as good as I think they are. And that first half, mirrored everything that is bad about Springbok Rugby and has been bad, especially in the last 2 years. And the second half, at least the 30 minutes, mirrored everything that's been good since Rasmus took over. Take nothing away from the Pumas. It's not going to be easy in Argentina. I think the Springboks are the one team that's struggling the most in playing in Argentina. And that Estadio Malvinas in Mendoza is a cauldron that is not kind to visiting teams.
The team boasts 437 caps in total and sees 334 of those in the forwards alone.
The scrum is a big focus for us every single game we play. Your set piece is one of the most important areas of the game. So come scrum time, we know traditionally Argentina do have a strong scrum, and they're very smart, and come scrum time and they make good decisions there. And so we know we have to be clinical in that area of play, but we're just going to stick to what our process is and what we do.
All eyes will be on the back line, however. They appeared rusty and rudderless in Durban and will need to be more accurate in many aspects. This will be only the third time the Springboks have played at the venue in Mendoza, with a 16-all draw in 2012 and a narrow 22-17 victory in 2013. So if history and the performance last weekend is anything to go by, the men in green and gold should prevail on Saturday evening. CS Duplessis, CGTN, Johannesburg.
International news is up next. Stay tuned.
Crusade, crusade, crusade. The Lord-chosen charismatic revival movement invites you to a 2-day power-packed crusade titled Arrival of the Master, to be held on Saturday 1st and Sunday 2nd of September 2018 at the famous buffer zone, Talembe. This life-changing crusade commences at 4 p.m. every day, ministering the General Overseer of the Lord Chosen, Pastor Lazarus Moka. Come and experience life-changing testimonies, supernatural promotion, divine restoration, financial breakthrough, and genuine salvation. Make it a date and don't miss it. Jesus is Lord.
Welcome back to Newsfile here on GRTS. Farmers in South Africa are echoing fears expressed in President Trump's tweet while no land has yet been seized. There is worry these seizures could turn violent or cause plummet in land value. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa stated earlier this week that land expropriation would begin by seizing state-owned, not privately owned land. Land remains a contested issue, with black South Africans making up 80% of the population but own less than a quarter of the land.
No land, let's be clear, no land has been seized, but there is worry that the seizures could turn violent or cause a plummet in land value. The South African President Cyril Ramaphosa stated earlier this week that land expropriation would start by seizing state-owned, not privately owned land. Land remains a deeply contested issue, with black South Africans making 80% of the country's population, but they own less than a quarter of the land in South Africa.
It's fact, you know, we've lost 4 of our neighbors in the last 10, 12 years due to farm murders. My direct neighbor was murdered 4 or 5 years ago, and it's people very close to you eventually that gets affected. So it's a great concern to us, and I think it's something that government should look into and try and stop as soon as possible.
White individual farmers only own 22% of the country as a whole. The government owns a third. There's traditional communities that owns large parts of the rest. So the figures are being portrayed falsely as if white people own all the land, which, as I've said, is only 22%, and that is being abused to try and mobilize people to building up hatred towards the white community, and those things we need to oppose to say what the real.
Still in South Africa, investors are nervously waiting to see an end to the trade dispute between China and the United States. New trade tariffs on both sides have battered emerging markets in recent weeks. Emerging market currencies have fallen sharply on ongoing trade war rhetoric. CGTN's Sumitra Nyodo takes a look at the impact on Africa.
Up for a second round of tariff hikes, bringing the total amount of Chinese imports subject to a 25% tax to $50 billion.
Trump is looking after the interests of America. He's trying to rearrange the trade balances of everybody else, and he has made promises to the American electorate that he's going to create jobs and all industry must come back to America. So he's going to put China under pressure. He's going to put all of us under pressure.
China has hit back with its own tariffs, but is calling for calm, as a trade dispute is already unsettling global markets. It's another blow for an economy like South Africa that's already struggling with low growth and high unemployment. The currency has fallen over 10% since the trade war began.
It's particularly problematic because South Africa is a small open economy. By that I mean more than our imports and exports make up more than 50% of South Africa's GDP. So South Africa is very exposed to global trade and global trade activity. And as global trade slows, South Africa's economy will lose even further momentum, and potentially it disrupts investment flows and obviously the exchange rate.
On the upside, there could be an opportunity for other countries to increase trade with China, but countries like South Africa need to gear up.
We also need to get ready to be very competitive so that people come to us not because they're doing us a favor, but because they know that they get better value in dealing with us in terms of our productivity, in terms of quality of the product, and in terms of price as well.
Action may be required very soon. The U.S. president has already threatened to impose tariffs on all $500 billion worth of Chinese imports.
So what I see as a key initiative is for something like the BRICS forum to negotiate with one another and to recognize that this is a time for the BRICS to be more integrated and to try and draw in other emerging markets into an increased trade integration, increased trade deals, and find a way to integrate more fully rather than simply resort to trade protection.
For now, Africa is bracing for the worst. A protracted trade war is likely to slow global growth. Sumitra Naidu, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
This edition of the news, but before we go, a recap of the top stories once again. A call to revive the Gambia's top hospital. The Chief Medical Director of the Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital has called on government to commit more resources to the running of the hospital. And what about misleading advertisements in the Gambia? Consumer concerns over deceptive ads has hit a national high as technology brings smarter tools for PR companies. Our reporters went down the delicate lane to find out why ads look much better than the actual products they advertise. And going green in Kafuta, natives of the Kumbo East village have joined forces to restore the area's thinning forest cover and fast disappearing vegetation. Elsewhere, farmers in South Africa have echoed fears expressed in President Trump's tweet, while no land has yet been seized, and there is worry the seizures could turn violent or cause a plummet in land value. Plus in sports, the country's Scorpions started their first training session under new Belgian coach Tom Sanford ahead of crucial qualifiers. And that's the news for with me, Fatima Tassisai.
And I'm Mustafa Mbaye.
On behalf of the entire team, thanks for joining us. We'll be back next week, same time. And news file. Until then, enjoy the programs.